When American Idol came to St. Louis this summer, thousands of people showed up on the very slim chance that they might become a star. How different it was 75 years ago, when a kid from rural Missouri walked into a downtown St. Louis radio station with his guitar and that day was playing for a national audience. His name was Roy Queen, and he had a long, successful career in the country music and record business. And he passed away this summer at the age of 91. Well, I had the chance to meet Roy 10 years ago, sit down and talk with him about the old days. When Roy Queen went on the radio, it was in the days when it was all live, all the time. There were records, of course, but it would be years before radio stations would be playing them. When a radio station went on the air, it needed real people, and lots of them.
See, we had no records, or nobody had records, or no tapes, nothing like that. So KMOX had 2 organists. Then we had Benny Fell's big orchestra, which full-time, big stuff. And the rest of the time, I don't remember just how they did kill the time through the day. Well, we had that organ played nearly all day long. I mean, we didn't have no talk shows then either. And as I look back, radio must have been pretty dull, but it was new, and nobody knew any better. Oh, for years and years I've rambled, drink my wines and gamble.
In 1929, radio was already big, but still young, and a 16-year-old kid from Pilot Knob, Missouri could hop a freight to the big city, show up at KMOX radio with a guitar, and practically walk right into the studio. This sort of amateur show was great for early radio. It filled the time, and it helped feed radio's tremendous appetite for new talent.
So I walked in that morning, and there's a lot of people with audition, but I was the only one with a guitar and a yodel. There were the piano players and imitators and singers and dancers and everything like that. He would come around, and he'd just take her name, like Roy Queen, and here was Bill Jones on the piano, and so, and he just lined them up. Then we went down the line, and I think I was about the 5th on the, and they put us on the air, and some of them was lousy, and some of them was lousier. Somehow I can't give up my good old
Roy's rendition of Rough and Rowdy Ways got him a regular job and a new nickname, the Lone Singer.
Roy Queen was probably the ultimate granddaddy of hillbilly music. Hillbilly was kind of an all-encompassing genre that had Western music, swing music, polka music, and usually came in the form of a program, a variety show with all of those, and comedy.
The kid from Pilot Knob, who never before had performed before any more people than could fit into a barn, now had his voice carrying over half the country. For an entertainer, there truly had never been anything in the history of the world like radio.
The best way to describe the situation back then is there were fewer radio stations, which meant that if a program was heard, say, for example, on KMOX, it was heard all over the country.
Roy Queen didn't really realize how famous he'd become until he hit the road.
This is where I found out that we had coverage. I pulled into Fort Worth, and I had right on the back, Roy Queen, the Lone Singer, KMOX, St. Louis. The guy there at the filling station, I stopped in to get gasoline and get a drink soda. And he said, "You Roy Queen?" "Yeah." "Well," he said, "we listen to you all the time." I'll say 2 hours after I landed in Fort Worth, I was on the Southwest Network with W. Leo Daniels' Light Crust Doughboys.
The radio artists, especially the musical artists in those days, were in a state of flux, and they may be on KMOX for a while, then they may be on WLS, they might be on WLW in Cincinnati. Whichever station tended to woo them, that's where they'd show up.
It was steady work, on the road and in the studios. In 1935, Roy Queen was back in St. Louis on KMOX.
the grip left over from me father's mustache cup. Roy Queen!
There are no holds barred. It's corny humor. It's lots of loud laughter. It's fun with the audience. And that's the way things were. There were live audiences in that auditorium at KMOX. You'd be sitting in your farm 75 miles outside of St. Louis, listening to the Uncle Dick Slack show on KMOX every morning at 5:30, and these people were having fun, and there was laughter, and there was applause, and you'd say, I'm going to get to St. Louis one day, and I'm going to be in that audience. And that's what people wanted to do. They wanted to be a part of something that sounded so good.
What have you got here with you this morning? I want you to know, my friend, that I was down at Pilot Knob yesterday.
It was an age and an era that is gone, and the pioneers, the originals, are passing on. Roy Queen was one of them.
I used to yodel. Yodel,